Hey guys, tonight we descend literally into the underworld. Not the fiery, screaming version your high school mythology book warned you about, but a quieter, oddly domestic corner of eternity. You're here to witness something no mortal has ever dared imagine. The night Hades himself decided that hell, well, technically the underworld, needed redecorating. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where my sleepy travelers are tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive in the gloom of Hades' realm, and it's underwhelming. Gray fields, gray walls, gray air. It's like someone took all the color sliders of existence and dragged them down to zero. The dead shuffle around in a kind of eternal boredom, whispering stories that even they seem tired of. You can practically hear Hades sigh somewhere deep in his obsidian palace. After millennia of ruling this place, the god of the dead has hit what you could call a divine midlife crisis. So, tonight, he's doing something drastic. You watch him emerge from the shadows, a tall, dark figure with cheekbones sharp enough to cut through marble, holding a scroll labeled Project Afterlife Makeover. Yes, the Lord of the Underworld has become the first interior designer of hell. You probably won't survive his mood board. Hades starts pacing across the palace hall, gesturing dramatically. "Too many bones," he mutters, "not enough texture." He snaps his fingers, and suddenly the skeletal pillars shimmer, morphing into polished black basalt, streaked with faint red veins, lava frozen mid-scream. Not bad. Then he conjures floating orbs of faint golden light, which hover like lost suns. The whole room feels warmer, almost cozy, in a mildly terrifying way. You trail behind as he surveys the changes, clearly pleased with himself. Persephone would have loved this, he muses aloud, though she's up on the surface tending her flowers and not exactly here to critique his vision. That's when the first joke hits you. Hades, Lord of the Dead, decorating with warmth and light. It's like Dracula opening a smoothie bar. But there's something weirdly sincere about it. He wants the underworld to be more than punishment. He wants it to feel lived in. Maybe that's his quiet rebellion against the Olympian hierarchy. If Zeus gets the sky, Poseidon the sea, then why can't Hades make the afterlife feel a little less bleak? A few ghostly assistants float by carrying rolls of ethereal drapery. They unfurl shimmering veils that ripple between black and silver. One wraith asks timidly, "My lord, should we add more torches?" Hades pauses. "No," he says, stroking his chin. "Torches are too dramatic. We're going for subtle despair this season." You can't help but smirk. Historians still argue whether the ancient Greeks saw Hades as evil or merely misunderstood, but tonight you're watching a god who's clearly just bad at expressing himself. This isn't about vanity, it's about control. When you rule over eternity, rearranging furniture might be the only thing left to do. He orders a team of shades to move a massive obsidian throne closer to the fire pit. "It's about flow," he explains, like a man who's watched too many home makeover shows through the veil of time. You notice a strange detail. Etched along the base of the throne are carvings of rivers, the Styx, Lethe, Acheron, each glowing faintly as if filled with liquid light. A fringe tidbit from myth says those rivers actually ran through his palace once, channeling the emotions of the dead. Now, apparently, they're just accent lighting. As he steps back to admire his work, a faint smile plays on his lips. For once, he doesn't look like the god of gloom. He looks like a craftsman, someone trying to turn silence into comfort. The underworld might never be heaven, but tonight, it feels a little less like hell. You follow Hades deeper into his palace, past corridors of black marble and quiet echoes. The new decor glows faintly now, lava veins pulsing like the veins of a sleeping titan. Somewhere in the distance, a harp plays softly, though no mortal musician could be seen. Hades' decorating spree has awakened the underworld's own soundtrack, a melody woven from sighs, whispers, and memory. He pauses before a long, empty hall. The ceiling arches high above, carved with constellations that no longer exist in the living sky. This, he says, will be the Hall of Reflections. You raise an eyebrow because mirrors in the underworld sound like a bad idea. But Hades waves his hand, and from the shadows emerge slabs of obsidian polished to such perfection that even the dead gasp at their own pale outlines. Not vanity, Hades explains dryly, perspective. The ghosts float closer, peering into their reflections as though seeing themselves for the first time in centuries. It's oddly moving, like memory resurfacing from beneath centuries of forgetfulness. You feel it too, the strange pull of nostalgia, the quiet ache of faces you can't quite recall. But Hades isn't sentimental, he's practical. If they remember who they were, he murmurs, they'll behave better. A grim form of psychological design, perhaps, but effective. You wonder how many therapists would envy this level of cosmic control. As he moves on, his robe trails sparks that fizzle on the stone. The underworld shouldn't just punish, it should teach. You can't help but grin. The god of the dead has gone full self-help guru. Somewhere, Zeus is rolling his thunderous eyes. He leads you into a vast cavern lit by an eerie turquoise glow. Here, the river Lethe snakes through the darkness, shimmering with forgetfulness. Souls line up along its banks, waiting to drink and erase their memories. Hades frowns, tapping his chin. Too predictable, he says. We could use ambience. He snaps his fingers again, and glowing lotus flowers bloom on the water's surface. The effect is hypnotic. The whole cavern hums with quiet serenity. You almost forget that this river literally erases minds. Maybe, he muses, if the process feels more peaceful, they'll accept it. It's a bizarrely humane thought. Historians still argue whether Hades was feared or respected. But standing here, you realize he's neither angel nor villain, just a perfectionist god with eternity to kill. Then comes the unexpected guest, Charon, the ferryman. Cloaked in tattered gray, he glides across the water, pole in hand. "You're redecorating again, my lord?" he croaks. Hades smirks. "Call it rebranding." You swear Charon rolls his hollow eyes. "Last time it was scented candles by the river Styx. That was Persephone's idea," Hades replies too quickly. You stifle a laugh. Even gods, it seems, have creative differences with their spouses. Charon points toward the far bank. "And what of the souls who can't pay?" Hades waves dismissively. "No one pays anymore. We're moving toward a subscription model." He says it with such casual authority that you almost don't notice the joke. Almost. The Lord of the Underworld just invented Netflix for reincarnation. You drift with them along the riverbank, where faint echoes of laughter and crying overlap. Hades watches the shades dissolve into the leaf and whispers, "They forget everything. I just wish I could forget a few things too." There's the melancholy again, the quiet truth behind all this effort. Maybe he's not decorating the underworld for them. Maybe he's doing it for himself, trying to make eternity bearable. He turns back to you, eyes glinting gold for a second.
And we'll move the Elysian fields next. A little more sunlight wouldn't hurt anyone. You nod, though sunlight in the underworld sounds impossible. But then again, tonight, Hades has already made darkness look beautiful. You step deeper into the underworld, and it's beginning to look less like a shadowy wasteland and more like a cosmic art installation that lost its funding halfway through. Hades, evidently proud of his progress, gestures toward what he calls the Grand Hall of Judgment. You blink, because the only thing grand about it is how confusing it looks. Imagine marble columns that somehow glow from within, a floor that appears to ripple like water, and chandeliers made from, well, souls. Actual floating souls, looping in lazy circles, humming faintly as they pass. Hades calls it ambient lighting. You are not sure if you should compliment him or start an exorcism. He's pacing now, muttering about aesthetics. Olympus gets all the golden clouds. He can't have a little shimmer? You try to imagine a god of death browsing interior design catalogs. Somewhere in the background, Cerberus sighs. Then a flash of inspiration. Hades unveils his newest concept, the River Lounge. It's supposed to be a place where souls relax before eternal placement. You step inside, and the walls are lined with obsidian mirrors reflecting faint blue fire. Chairs float just above the ground, swaying gently like they're breathing. The Styx flows through the center, and a skeletal waiter offers you a drink that steams and glows at the same time. You politely decline. Historians still argue whether this scene is metaphorical, an artistic evolution of Hades' myth, or literal divine renovation. Either way, it's strangely peaceful. Even Persephone admits during her yearly visit that it's not entirely dreadful. But she does suggest adding flowers. Hades responds by planting glowing fungi instead. Baby steps. You continue wandering. A mural catches your eye, an enormous depiction of the Titans falling into Tartarus, painted in shifting shadows. The paint moves. Each time you blink, the figures twist into new shapes, as if the memory of their defeat refuses to stay still. It's haunting, mesmerizing, almost beautiful. Art should make you uncomfortable, Hades says, noticing your stare. Otherwise, it's just furniture. You nod, trying to look thoughtful, while wondering who he's quoting. He probably invented the quote 5 seconds ago. There's also the matter of sound. Hades has hired a chorus of echoes to hum soft melodies throughout the realm. They hum from nowhere and everywhere, harmonizing with the wind that doesn't exist. Sometimes, if you listen closely, the tune sounds suspiciously like a 90s elevator song. Other times, it drifts into something mournfully divine. In a quiet corner, you spot a group of shades testing what appears to be a reincarnation chamber. Just in case we start offering loyalty programs, Hades says dryly. You're not sure whether he's joking, and honestly, you don't want to find out. The decor evolves as you go deeper. The jagged cliffs of old are now smoothed, carved into faces that whisper fragments of forgotten myths. You catch one saying something about lost empires. Another chuckles and says, "You should have seen Atlantis." You make a mental note not to talk back. And yet, beneath all the absurdity, there's purpose. Hades is trying, genuinely trying, to give meaning to despair, to turn eternal punishment into something livable, even relatable. You start to see it. The underworld isn't just a prison anymore. It's a reflection of life's clutter, regrets, and all those weird little design choices we justify because they feel right. By the time you reach the heart of his new creation, a glowing obsidian throne encircled by rivers of silver fire, you realize something quietly profound. Hades isn't decorating the underworld for himself. He's decorating it for you, for every mortal who will one day walk these paths, to make eternity a little less unbearable. You sit for a moment, feeling the hum of countless lives beneath your feet, and for the first time, the darkness doesn't seem so empty.
Quite so cold. By now, you've accepted that Hades has fully committed to his role as the underworld's first interior designer. You wander past shimmering caverns and whispering corridors, each one stranger and somehow more emotionally confusing than the last. You could almost believe you've walked into a moody art museum curated by someone who never got enough sunlight. He calls this next phase the Soul District. It's divided into neighborhoods, apparently. Organization brings peace, Hades mutters, consulting a scroll that looks suspiciously like a city zoning plan. You pass the fields of asphodel, where average souls drift aimlessly through pale meadows. But now, instead of endless gray, the grass glows faintly silver, and the trees hum low lullabies when the wind passes through. It's soothing, in that slightly unnerving way a haunted nursery rhyme might be. To your left lies the Elysian Quarter, Hades' attempt at luxury real estate. Historians still argue whether this version of paradise was influenced by later Roman retellings or Hades' own midlife crisis. The fields shine under an artificial sunrise that never sets, dotted with golden cottages. Souls here recline on clouds that feel like memory foam, discussing philosophy that none of them can remember finishing. It's like retirement, Hades jokes, but with fewer taxes and more ghosts. Then comes the murky border between the Elysian fields and Tartarus, the part Hades calls the transition zone. It's new, unmapped. He insists it's an experimental project where souls can work through their issues before facing eternal consequences. You step in cautiously. The air thickens, shimmering with the scent of burning myrrh and nostalgia. Around you, memories flicker into form, fragments of lives replaying like holograms, looping endlessly until the spirits accept them. It's unsettling and brilliant. Persephone once said the underworld should feel more like therapy than punishment. Hades didn't understand what therapy was, but he built this anyway. Souls murmur apologies into the air. Some laugh, some weep. You watch one figure reach out to hug another, then both vanish, dissolved into motes of soft gold. You don't know whether to feel comforted or terrified. As you continue, a strange mural catches your eye. It shows Hades, not as the Grim Reaper, but as an artist painting the walls of eternity. In his other hand, he holds a cracked mirror, reflecting both beauty and decay. The paint seems wet, alive, like the underworld itself is still under construction. Maybe it always will be. At one point, you hear faint music again, the chorus of echoes now joined by faint rhythmic drumming. It's the heartbeat of the realm, Hades explains. Keeps the place from collapsing. He says it casually, but you can feel it beneath your feet. A steady pulse, like the underworld itself, is alive and breathing. In a quieter chamber, you stumble upon a museum of mortal follies. Shelves of objects from the living world, cracked cell phones, half-finished love letters, melted candles, and somehow a broken coffee mug with "World's Best Dad" still visible on it. They bring these with them, Hades sighs. Can't let go, even down here. The gods above might mock him,
But you begin to see the wisdom in his madness. For the first time in mythic history, the realm of death feels human. The design may be bizarre, the aesthetic questionable, but it's layered with empathy. You glance at Hades, who's inspecting a chandelier made from meteor fragments, muttering about ambience. Beneath his dark humor, there's a quiet loneliness, the kind of ache you only notice in people who've been misunderstood for too long. You can't help but smile. Maybe the real makeover isn't the underworld, it's him. You take a deep breath. The air smells like dust and starlight. The endless dark doesn't feel so heavy anymore. Somewhere, a soul laughs softly, and the sound echoes through the marble halls like wind through a forgotten song. The final hour stretches over the underworld like a long indigo shadow. You trudge along corridors that twist and curve impossibly, the echoes of your footsteps mingling with distant whispers of souls you've never met. Hades follows close behind, humming a tune that sounds vaguely like a harp being gently tickled by a breeze. "I call it Ambience number 47, he mutters, swiping at an unfinished wall with a brush that seems far too small for the task. You probably won't survive the next few minutes without laughing at the absurdity of it all. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, comment below your location and the local time. It's the only thing that keeps me vaguely sane in this labyrinth. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive at the Hall of Mirrors, a chamber Hades proudly claims reflects the soul of the underworld. The walls shimmer with distorted reflections, showing your own face overlaid with countless others, some laughing, some crying, some frozen mid-scream. Historians still argue whether such reflections were ever imagined in Greek myth, but Hades has made it very real, in all its unnerving glory. Every mirror is framed with twisted vines of obsidian and fragments of fossilized leaves, glinting faintly under flickering torchlight. Nearby, Persephone drifts in, curious but critical. "Less charcoal gray, more pearlescent," she suggests, pointing at a corridor of freshly painted walls. Hades grimaces, adding a tiny flourish of silver leaf to the ceiling with a solemn nod. The conversation between them is half critique, half sibling banter, and entirely human. You watch as they negotiate, laugh, and occasionally sigh in exasperation, realizing that even rulers of death have mundane disagreements about aesthetics. A lounge area catches your attention next. She's like rock formations carved from basalt, piled with plush cushions woven from enchanted spider silk. Tiny glowing orbs hover lazily overhead, casting an otherworldly soft light. That each orb responds to emotional resonance. Happier souls make them brighter, anxious souls dim them. You sip on an impossibly black cup of nectar-like liquid offered by a spectral attendant, noting that even in the underworld, tea seems universally necessary. The final zone is the Garden of Forgotten Things. Statues of mythical creatures line paths of black gravel, moss growing deliberately over some, while others gleam with freshly polished bronze. It's quieter here, as if the chaos of the previous halls has been smoothed into contemplative serenity. Souls wander between statues, touching stone and bronze with reverence. Hades whispers that this section is for reflection, though you suspect it's partly to keep him sane too. You pause at the central fountain, a sculpture of a hydra with water flowing endlessly from its many mouths. The sound is hypnotic, a soft susurration that seems to speak in tongues older than Olympus itself. You take a seat nearby, letting the pulse of the underworld wash over you. Hades stands back, surveying his work like an exhausted artist who has finally finished a marathon canvas. Evening falls in a slow gradient, darkening the halls into velvety shadows. You watch as the faint luminescence from the orbs and mirrors blends seamlessly with the torchlight, creating a surreal chiaroscuro. The underworld no longer feels merely a realm of punishment. It is alive, curated, and profoundly peculiar. You realize that Hades' makeover, absurd, obsessive, and entirely unconventional, has transformed the eternal darkness into a tapestry of narrative, emotion, and unexpected warmth. A final laugh echoes through the corridors, Hades' his own voice mingling with the distant whispers of content souls. You sip once more from your cup, feeling the echo of countless stories steeping into a quiet, eternal resonance. The underworld has been decorated, not with gold or fame, but with attention, imagination, and that curious spark that turns even death into something strangely familiar.